The digital sphere is a chaotic arena, a constant churn of hot takes, highlights, and fleeting controversies. Yet every so often, a moment cuts through the noise with such clarity and force that it doesn't just demand attention, it redefines the landscape. This is precisely what happened when a fresh, unassuming interview with Caitlyn Clark, conducted not by ESPN or a legacy sports network, but by Chinese podcaster Taylor Ruan, began exploding across the internet. This wasn't a standard post-game presser filled with cliches. This was a conversation that transcended borders, languages, and expectations, offering a stunningly clear window into the present and future of not just one athlete's career, but of women's basketball itself. The revelations within, both explicit and implicit, have left fans and analysts stunned, forcing a fundamental recalibration of how we understand Caitlyn Clark's trajectory and her role in the worldwide sports ecosystem. The very premise of the interview was the first signal of a seismic shift. Here was Caitlyn Clark, the American phenom, Rookies of the Year, record-shattering scorer, sitting down with an international creator from China. This simple fact is a powerful testament to her evolved stature. Her influence is no longer contained within the borders of the United States, nor is it solely mediated through traditional American sports media gatekeepers. The pursuit by Taylor Ruan, a host with verified credibility, and a roster of previous guests including NBA stars like Kawhi Leonard and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, underscores a critical point. Clark is now viewed as a global basketball asset, a figure whose words and presence carry weight in markets far beyond the WNBA's typical reach. The interview wasn't a curiosity, it was an acknowledgement. The conversation began by tracing Clark's roots, probing the origin story of a player who often appears to have been forged fully formed on the hardwood. When asked if there was ever a moment basketball felt challenging, or if she was simply born to be a winner, Clark's answer was revealing in its balance. She acknowledged the natural skill, the knack for basketball, which aligns with the public perception of a prodigy. But she quickly pivoted to the grind, to the self-imposed challenges, the hard workouts, the bad games, the relentless pursuit of improvement. "I feel like you find ways to challenge yourself within those moments," she said. This duality is core to her mythos, the preternatural talent married to an almost obsessive work ethic. It's a narrative that resonates universally, from playgrounds in Indiana to courts in Beijing. But the interview truly ignited when it pivoted from the past to the future, from introspection to impact. The host, speaking for a burgeoning fanbase, told Clark, "I think you inspired a lot of girls in China. More and more attention for women's basketball in China right now." He noted that young girls were attributing their love of the game to her. Clark's response was polite, appreciative, and then deliberately earth-shaking. "That's pretty cool. And obviously China's not a place I've ever been to, but I know I'll be there very soon. In that single, casually confident phrase, Clark didn't just hint at a possibility, she announced an inevitability. This was not the vague "I'd love to visit someday" of a typical athlete. This was the statement of someone with a plane ticket, an itinerary, and a strategic plan. The implications are vast. Is this a Nike-led promotional tour, leveraging her status to deepen the swoosh's imprint in the world's largest consumer market? Is it a basketball diplomacy mission, running clinics and inspiring the next generation of Chinese players, much like Yao Ming did in reverse for the NBA? Or is it the first step in a broader, league-sanctioned effort to export the WNBA brand globally, with Clark as its flagship ambassador? The what is still unclear, but the that is now undeniable. Caitlyn Clark's sphere of influence is officially trans-Pacific. She elaborated, showing a keen awareness of the scale of her platform. "I think having that type of reach is something that also has an impact on me. Like, you get to inspire so many different people, so many people from different walks of life, but they all love the same thing. They love basketball." This is the consciousness of a global athlete. She is no longer just playing for Iowa or Indianapolis. She is playing for an international audience that sees in her a reflection of their own aspirations. Her story, loving the game, watching it, investing time to improve, is a universal template she now knowingly offers to the world. Perhaps the most culturally significant analysis to arise from this interview, however, wasn't about geography, but about demographics. The commentary surrounding the conversation highlighted a phenomenon that is, in fact, revolutionary. There are young boys whose role model is Caitlyn Clark. Let that reality fully permeate the historical context of sports. For generations, young male athletes have looked exclusively upward, to the MJs, Kobes, LeBrons, and Currys, for inspiration. Female athletes, no matter how dominant, were often relegated to a separate category of admiration. Respected but not emulated, appreciated but not idolized in the same formative way on the asphalt courts where dreams are first practiced. Clark is shattering that paradigm. Boys are now studying her deep-range launches, her audacious passing, her competitive fire, and they are incorporating Clark-like moves into their own games. This is the purest, most unfiltered form of influence in sports. It's the Stephen Curry effect of 2013-2016, replicated exactly, but across a gender line few believed could be crossed so decisively. When children, regardless of gender, choose a female athlete as their primary basketball inspiration, it signals a tectonic shift in perception. The athlete is no longer a great women's player. She is simply a great player, full stop. As the analysis aptly put it, ball is ball. The qualifiers are dissolving. Clark is earning appreciation not as an exception to a rule, but as a defining archetype of basketball excellence. This transformation is the engine behind her commercial and cultural impact. The interview analysis drew a direct line between Clark's arrival and the rising visibility of the entire WNBA. Players like Aja Wilson, Breena Stewart, and Arik Ogunboyle were always spectacular, but they operated in a relative media vacuum. Clark, through a combination of her style of play, record-breaking NCAA career, and magnetic persona, pulled a massive new audience to the league. Those viewers tuning in to see her stayed to discover the profound depth of talent already in place. They discovered the two-way dominance of Wilson, the all-around mastery of Stewart, the scoring fury of Ogunboyle, even a moment of controversy, like Chennedy Carter's much-discussed foul on Clark, served to spotlight Carter's own tenacious, elite defensive prowess to a newly attentive audience. This rising tide effect is what some within the WNBA ecosystem have frustratingly been slow to embrace. The defensive questions raised in the interview's analysis are poignant. Which teams have legitimately stopped Clark with schematic ingenuity and disciplined execution, rather than with a physical, foul-adjacent style that often borders on intimidation? The Connecticut Sun's approach in the 2024 playoffs was cited as a prime example of the latter, a strategy less about solving a basketball puzzle and more about administering sustained physical punishment, often with lenient officiating. That's not defense. It's a testament to a lack of defensive answers. In contrast, teams like the Las Vegas Aces have found more success by using athleticism, switching, and strategic positioning. The very scarcity of teams that have contained Clark within the rules only underscores her unguardable nature when her skills are allowed to operate freely. This connects directly to the economic reality the interview commentary highlighted: affordability and access. For a family seeking a live sports experience, the cost of NBA tickets, especially for premium matches, can be prohibitive. The WNBA, and specifically the event of seeing Caitlyn Clark play, offers a high-level, electrifying basketball alternative at a fraction of the price. This is not a minor point. It means a generation of children, in their most impressionable years, are being introduced to professional basketball through the WNBA and through Clark. They are forming their first fan allegiances, buying their first jerseys, and mimicking their first heroes within the ecosystem of women's sports. This cultivates a lifelong affinity that will pay dividends for the league for decades to come. Clark's personal basketball fandom, as noted in the analysis, adds a layer of poetic symmetry. Her favorite male player growing up was Jeremy Lin. Lin, of course, catalyzed Linsanity, a phenomenon that was particularly seismic within Asian and Asian American communities, proving the power of cultural connection in sports. Now, Clark, in her own way, is following a similar path of international resonance. Her planned trip to China isn't just a visit. It's a closing of a symbolic loop, where a player inspired by an Asian American icon becomes an icon inspiring millions across Asia. The host's description of Clark as the miracle the NCAA faced, the WNBA, and the hope of women's basketball itself may sound like hyperbole, but in the context of this interview and its repercussions, it rings with startling truth. She is a miracle of skill and timing. She arrived when social media could amplify her every move, when name, image, and likeness, nil, rules allowed her to build a brand concurrently with her game, and when a global audience, hungry for authentic sports heroes, was ready to receive her. Caitlyn Clark's conversation with Taylor Ruan was far more than a cue, it was a diplomatic communique from the future of sports. It revealed an athlete fully aware of her power, strategically extending her influence across oceans, and fundamentally altering who society sees as a sporting idol. Her impending trip to China is not merely a line on a calendar. It is the opening of a new front in the growth of women's basketball. The revelation that young boys emulate her is not a sidebar. It is evidence of a cultural normalization that activists and athletes have worked toward for generations. The interview didn't just change perspectives on where her career is heading. It illuminated where the sport itself is destined to go. Outward, upward, and into the hearts and minds of a global generation that no longer sees boundaries, only basketball. The path forward is no longer just a WNBA schedule. It's a world map, and Caitlyn Clark is already packing her bags. The explosion across the internet wasn't just about news. It was the sound of a ceiling, once firmly in place, cracking wide open.